Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back.
Misfit Nation. The Misfit Nation Show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation Show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome to the ToosDay Crue. We got Jake, a.k.a. Lacey, and Steven, a.k.a. Cagney, on the mics tonight, and they are welcoming a great guest in Will Eller, U.S. Army EOD veteran. As you know, this week is our Memorial Week shows, and we will start our show off remembering those who we lost in December of 2005. So bear with me as I read through this list. It is a long list of those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. Army Specialist Marcelino R. Cornell. Army Sergeant First Class John C. Dostey. Army Private Jonathan R. Fender. Army Staff Sergeant Ayman A. Taha. Army PFC George A. Lutz II. Army Specialist Prince K. Tiwia. Army Specialist Aaron M. Forbes. PFC Jason D. Hassanur. Army First Sergeant Tobias C. Meister. Army Private Joshua M. Moorberg. Army Specialist Lance S. Sage. Army Specialist Dane O. Carver. Sergeant Dominic R. Coles. Chief Warrant Officer 4 Richard M. Salter. CW2 Isaiah E. Santos. Specialist Anthony O. Cardinal. Specialist Sergio Guadino. Sergeant Joseph J. Andres. Sergeant Mila L. Maravillosa. Sergeant Regina C. Real. And now, Jake and Steve will take you on.
Good evening, Steve.
Good evening, Jake. How are you?
I am good. I can't see your lovely face, but I can hear your voice.
I am Batman tonight.
Hey, you got to say it like, I am Batman.
I'm Batman.
That's right.
I'm Batman. Batman has no camera.
Hey, before we get started, if you're out there listening, please hit like and subscribe and share the videos, and they'll be on YouTube forever. Now, without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest this evening. I've known him a couple years, since about 1995.
That's a couple?
That's a couple.
Okay.
We met on our way to Bosnia in 1995, and we've been keeping in touch ever since. Ran into each other again in Iraq, and just always kept in touch with one another. He's a great guy. I love him like a brother. And without any further ado, let's bring in Will Eller. Good evening, Will.
Hey guys, how are y'all?
Good.
We're good, thank you.
I'm wiping tears away already. Saying he loves me like a brother. We have known each other a little bit.
Oh yeah, we've known each other a day or two.
Well,
When you hit a certain age, decades is a day or two. Is that what we're saying?
Well, yeah.
That's the way it works.
Okay. All right.
My mind thinks it was yesterday. My body says otherwise.
Yeah. Right there with you.
I see somebody popped up here in the chat. I would like from England, Angel, if you're listening, go ahead and click on there that you are listening from Great Britain. So we'll have a guest in Great Britain, and thank you for jumping on. All right. Will, I didn't say much about you, just that, you were an Army veteran. You're an EOD veteran. I've known you for all those years. Won't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
All right. From South Texas, born and raised down close to Galveston, not too far. Grew up down there. Joined the Army in 53. 53 now, 53, 54. I joined the Army in 91, right after the beginning of the Gulf War, and jumped in, and not because I was patriotic, not because we were going to war. Definitely not me. Basically joined the Army because I had failed at everything else. Absolute train wreck, to be honest, as a kid. But I survived it. Joined the Army because I wasn't going anywhere in a hurry, but just doing all the wrong things and living my life the way I wanted to, and joined the Army, and because I needed some discipline and needed to have a change in my life, and it was a change. It wasn't one I liked. Went in as a generator mechanic. Basically just took whatever they had to offer at the time. Didn't really care. I was leaving. My dad was on his deathbed, so to speak. He had cancer that we knew wasn't going to go away, that they couldn't cure. So my dad had made a comment to my mom about what's that boy going to do when I'm not around to, give him a job or, what have you. So that was kind of the inspiration. I said, hey, I need to grow up and get with it. Went in the Army. I definitely did not grow up for several years later, but went in the Army, and I absolutely hated it. I hated it. I did not like it. I was looking forward to getting out. I was in a unit. I was a mechanic. I was in a unit in Korea, and basically, having 5 formations a day to tell you what time you're going to lunch now, come back at 1 o'clock, and we'll have another formation to make sure everybody made it back, and then at 4 o'clock, we're having a formation, tell you what time to come to PT tomorrow that we came to for the last year, same time. And couldn't stand it. I got a compassionate when my dad did pass away and ended up in Fort Sam Houston working at Camp Bullis. And was a generator mechanic and probably one of the coolest units ever. They had a generator, but it was a civilian one. They had civilians that took care of it. But because I was on a compassionate, I was in a joint medical readiness training center for doctors and nurses to learn how to live in the field. I'd done SEER school in Korea, so I taught escape and evasion, land nav, worked the litter obstacle course, did that kind of stuff, and it was okay. It wasn't bad, but I worked for an ex-82nd guy who was by the book 100%. Made me hate the Army even more. And I was dead set on getting out, dead set on leaving the service and finding something else to do. My wife and I recently married and my wife was in the Navy. Met her in San Antonio. She worked at a personnel center there for Marines that came into the area for training, or Navy personnel that came to Fort Sam for training. Mm-hmm. So we met and got married and have 3 kids now and all that good stuff. But I was getting out, had my sights set on something else, and one day it rained at Camp Bullis. And when it rains in the hill country of Texas, everything washes really fast. And we had a mortar round that washed up. Didn't know what a mortar round was. Never heard of one. And they called EOD. They marked off the area because we had students out there in the field. And they called EOD. And I worked for a guy who was in the 82nd who wore, if you put your hand in your pocket for 2 seconds, he a vein popped out in his head, his forehead. He was very, very much by the book. I'll never forget him. Probably one of the best leaders ever, but he was so ate up with the Army, and his name was Alan Kelly. He's a great guy. But anyways, these guys show up in a Cut B pickup. They get out of their truck. They got hats kicked up like this. They got no top on, just T-shirt, and it says Bomb Squad on it. They're calling each other by first name basis, everything. And all I could do was look at my NCO, and I'm like, I'm waiting for this vein to pop out and for him to like go into shock here. And it never happened. And when they left, I said, who was that? And he said, that's them EOD guys. And I said, how do I become that? And he says, oh, you don't want to be like them guys. Look, they showed up here. You saw how they were. They didn't even have their boots, blouse, all this stuff. And I said, exactly. And you didn't say one word about it. Those are my people. And so that was it. Come to find out, the unit at Fort Sam was Ed Bundy, Mark Lavario, Chad Hegeman, Starkey was there, just amazing people.
Yes.
Bodie was there, incredible people. Jimmy Little was a sergeant major down the street. And I went over there and this is how it was back then. It's changed these days, but Ed Bundy lived at the end of the street from me. Another EOD tech lived on the next street. Another one lived right down from him. So everybody lived right there close together. And I ended up meeting Ed and talking to him, and next thing you know, I was an attachee at that unit, and went off to school and became an EOD guy. Joined in 95, left for school in 94, went to Eglin, Indian Head, the real EOD school. I don't need hate. I'm just poking the bear here. Went back, of course, to Redstone to finish out Army Specific. And then went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Jimmy Little had told me, he said, where do you want to go when you graduate? And I said, I'd like to go to Fort Leonard Wood. And he said, you'll go to Fort Leonard Wood if that's where you want to go. And sure enough, when I was in Nukes, he called. And he said, do you want to go to he called the schoolhouse. And I said, do you still want to go to Fort Leonard Wood? And I said, I do. And he said, that's where you're going. I said, all right. He said, don't mess up. I said, okay. And I made it and went there and got there in 95 right when Oklahoma City bombing happened. Went straight to I got there in March. December came along and they pulled us all into the conference room, and I'll never forget it. Pulled us in the conference room and said, hey, we're deploying. We're deploying two of you, a team leader and a team member. Of course, I was a team member at the time, and he said, you guys are going to go to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and deploy with the 61st at the time, not 761st, and go to Bosnia. And I didn't. This is kind of the part where I show how selfish I was. My hand went straight up. Didn't call my wife. Didn't think twice about it. I just I'm an EOD tech, and I went through school, and I wanted to be tested. I wanted to deploy. My dad was a Korean War veteran. Didn't have much of a relationship with my dad, but I figured I got to do those things to experience, real life. And my hand went up, and then they told me, you got to go hit medical now because you're leaving in just a couple of days. And I said, well, how long am I leaving? And they said, no idea. So you, at the time, you were at Shelby, I believe, right? Yeah. Jake, right? Oh, we still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and Jake, you were at Shelby, I believe, and you and Oliver were getting the same exact speech from your guys to go to Bliss and deploy with those guys out there. I went home. When I called my wife, said, hey, I'm leaving. I'm going to Bosnia. And she said, when are you leaving? I said, as soon as I get done with medical, probably here in the next couple of days. And she said, how long are you going to be gone? I said, I really don't know. 6 months to a year. And she's at home with 3 little ones. And I realized at that point I may have been a little bit selfish, and that was not good for life there. Went to Fort Sill, and luckily we were held over for a little bit while we were getting gear and getting trucks prepared and all that stuff, and that my wife and my kids were able to come out and hang out with me a couple of days there in Oklahoma a few times, and then we deployed. Gone for 10 months, I believe is what it was, and came back from there with you and Tracy. Us three traveled back together from Bosnia. We stopped in Germany and then came on home, but got to leave a little bit earlier. That deployment was probably I was deployed with the absolute, in my mind, some of the best people in the world, but it was the most miserable deployment for me because I made a very selfish decision without discussing it with my wife. So my whole time there was pretty miserable, realizing that I had put her through that. So.
Yeah, I remember that. And you brought up the people that you were with. I was kind of jealous of you because of the command team that you had there. At the time, Captain Bradley, First Sergeant Lair. Oh man,
and absolutely rock star team, rock star. I mean,
I actually
all
did.
The way,
I actually did get to work for them as Major Bradley and Sergeant Major Lair when they were the commander and sergeant major at the schoolhouse, and they ran it the same way.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I made some poor decisions that resulted in me not having a good time. But when I volunteered, I was sitting in a room with some just grand slam team leaders too when they told us, and my hand went up, and I was looking across the tables at team leaders, and I was like, I need one of these guys to raise their hand. And the one that raised his hand, EOD wise, he was on point as a person, and he had some problems. So we were not best of friends, and we had issues. And he raised his hand because I had been his team member, and it was the last hand I needed to see go up, to be honest with you, to go to a foreign country. But that's the way it goes. And we went, and I mean, from the top down, Bradley, Sergeant Major Lair, Markham. We had just Keith Baker was in that unit. We had just amazing Mark Grubbs, amazing people, amazing, top-notch unit. That unit was stacked with just incredible people. And I look at people in EOD, and the ones that move the peg are true heroes and legends in the game. And in the job, and Steve Lair is definitely one of them.
Oh yeah,
Mike Vining being one of the first Delta guys, Delta Force EOD guys. They all, those people moved the peg quite a bit, and he was, people in that unit went on to move the peg, and but I had a good time. I learned a lot. So.
Because I think, didn't Markham get the Samuel Sharp Award?
That I do not know. No. But he deserved it.
Yeah.
He's Markham is hard to beat. And I seen Markham years later when I got out, and I'll get to that. When I got out and came back in, I was at Eglin, or at Redstone, Virginia, and when I went through there, he actually invited me to come sit on an academic review board, and I sat on an academic review board and got to sit there with him, and that was kind of neat. I enjoyed that, and we got to hold EOD tech's futures in our hands.
That's a little different sitting on that side of one, ain't it?
Yes, sir. I never sat on the other one. Not that I was good. I don't know how I made it through EOD school. I have no clue. To this day, I don't. I had a good wife at home who believed in me, and I called her so many times and told her that I didn't know how I was going to make it, and that, I didn't know if I'd make it or not. And she just, she encouraged me the whole time. So I did make it, but I didn't go to a board. There was a couple of times I was sweating bullets in that retest phase, but but we started with 25. I think we ended with 7. And out of that 7, not all of those were originals. There were some that fell back in our class. But anyways, got out. When I got back from Bosnia, it wasn't long. I got out in 1998. I was a little disgruntled. Of course, my family life wasn't good because of all because of my selfishness and the way I was. Started working in the corporate world. Did some EOD work actually for a couple months, and then found a great position in the telephone business and went to work there and ended up working in the corporate world and climbing the corporate ladder, so to speak. And life was good except for the fact that I was living out of a suitcase. I was never home, so it was no different than me raising my hand. Ultimately, so the wars kicked off. Jeremy Daniels is the culprit. Jeremy was calling me, telling me, "Oh man, you won't believe what we're doing. We're going to Iraq. We're blowing things up. We're doing this. We're doing that. It's awesome." Ray Ertl was just the opposite. Ray was saying, "Stay away. It's a new world. Your tolerance and your patience won't do well." Ray was kind of, and the bad thing is they're like best friends, right? So one was telling me one thing, another one was telling me the completely opposite. I decided, well, it didn't take long, and I told my wife could see it. I mean, she could see it all over me. I couldn't stand it. People were dying. EOD techs were dying. And probably the straw that broke the camel's back was Kim.
That one. She had been my team member at Shelby right out of school. That one hit me hard.
Yeah, because her and Jeremy, they graduated really close together. If not the same class, it was really, really, really close. And she went to Shelby. He came to Leonardwood. So
and I think it kind of made it worse too. I knew Max, and that was just that was a bad time.
Yep, without a doubt. And so hearing that, right, and then Ray had a deal in Afghanistan where they lost a bunch of guys on a demo op. Hearing that stuff was truly eating me from the inside out. It really was. I was performing at work. I was still doing my thing. But all I could think about was that. All I could think about was, the job. And so it didn't take long, and we had that discussion, and my wife was like, I don't think you're going to be happy unless you do this. And she, we told my mom. My mom lost her mind. My mom was very, very upset, and she was telling my wife, "You put your foot down right now. He's not going back to war." And my wife basically said, he's not going to be happy. He's just not. There's people dying, and there's things happening. I wasn't thinking so much of my, I want to go to war. I was really thinking about I want to do this job there, because the IED threat was so massive, and I didn't really know anything about IEDs other than there was a Lima pub out there, and what we learned in school because I'd been out of it for so long. If something's interesting, stop me. If not, I'll ramble. But
I tell you what, take us to the point where we saw one another again in Iraq.
Okay, I had a hard time getting back in the Army. A very hard time. I got back in. I was up north, and man, I'm horrible with names, but I was with the 763rd. I was up north, and Jeremy and I both got Taji. I was at Taji. Jeremy and I both got fragged out down to Baghdad. And fragged out, for those that don't know, they take an EOD team and they say, "Hey, look, we need you to go operate in this area. People need support. And so I took Jeremy's team and my team and sent us down to Baghdad, and we ended up living with you guys. Well, you guys replaced the unit that we were living with. We basically moved in, said, hey, we need a room. They gave us a room. We were supporting some engineers and some other people. And Jeremy would work. He and his team would work one day, and the next day I would take the mission, and whatever happened in that area, we were responding. You guys came in and replaced that unit, and it was pretty incredible to see you walk in there and see old Jay Collins.
Hey, we got a thing here. That the first person we was talking about was Kim Volts. They wanted her full name.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I was to say that I was surprised when I walk in and saw you was that's an understatement.
Yeah, we it was really cool. I mean, it was a good time staying there. The mission wasn't too hot where we were getting beat up too much. Your guys the unit you were in did a really, really, really good job sharing information, and every day y'all had a meeting and talked about missions and what y'all ran, and so we'd sit in there and pick up on what you guys were doing, and it worked out really well. We definitely hung out, definitely got to share times together and catch up, that's for sure. And you got me hooked on that stupid game on my computer on how to grow crops and farming game.
That's just a way to eat up time, brother.
Oh, it was. It was.
Well, hey, like I told you when I called you and asked you about this, this is our Memorial Week special shows, and I know that you've got somebody that was very, very close to you that you want to talk about, and just tell us about him.
Well, unfortunately, we both have numerous. We both have got a long list. At the moment, I took my wife and my daughter. We were in Florida for my son's wedding, July before last, or last July, and I went to the wall and I counted names on the wall, and of all services, and I think 34 names, I believe it was, that were that pulled on heartstrings, right? That knew them enough to where it was a kick in the throat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we both know a lot, and I'm definitely want to talk about Chauncey. I don't want to take away from anybody else by any means. I will tell you real quick though. Gator, when we went to pre-deployment and we went to Global Anti-Terrorism Operator Readiness, or whatever it stood for down in Huntsville. When I first came back on, I went to Gator, and when they ran me on a problem as a team leader, they ran me on the scenario that Kim was killed on.
Oh,
and it took me when they told me that it took a while to run that problem. Terrible. And then I'm sure you can relate, and but so Chauncey came to Fort Leonard Wood. He was there before I came back in, so he was an E3 at the time, I believe. Mm-hmm. And young, skinny, little bitty old nothing kid from Texas, East Texas. Very proud to be from East Texas.
Hey, aren't all of you?
Just a little bit. Yeah. Well, I've got a dear friend that lives in Alaska, and he likes to remind me that Texas is small. But yeah, Yeah, I think we are just a little. But anyways, he was raised in East Texas, and he joined EOD straight off the streets. Good kid. Just learning. We had a whole unit full of them. Whole unit full of brand new soldiers, and we were fixing to deploy. They went to NTC. I showed up to the unit while they were at NTC, and he gets back, or they get back, and I meet him. You know, of course, he's from Texas, so he's hanging out with me a lot. And at first, he started chasing my daughter a little bit, and we had to have a conversation. And yeah, he actually asked me if he could ask my daughter out, and I wasn't much of a Christian back then, and my reply would probably been about the same as your reply to a young EOD tech asking you. Anyways, great kid, wanted to learn. He was very smart mechanically, could work on anything, just had the mechanical skills and everything. And he was a knucklehead, young kid, E3. But we deployed, and he was not on my team. He was actually on Michael Kinney's team. Michael Kinney used to be at the unit and then came back out. He was on his team for a while. Oh, my Chica's saying hi. And then we get back from that deployment, the one where I ran into you. We get back, and we get told we're not home but just a couple of months, and we get told we're going again.
For the surge.
For the surge.
Yeah,
and
I got the same thing.
Oddly enough, they said like 8 of y'all are going to Fort Sill, Oklahoma to deploy with 761st. So it was a second time being, leaving my unit to go deploy with them. And so we went on the surge, and on the surge, he was my team member. And then I ended up being his platoon sergeant there. And nightmare of a deployment. I don't know how it was for you, but absolute nightmare. And I didn't think it was then. Now, now looking back, it was one of those where you just horrible. I mean, it really was. I can't explain to people how bad of a time that was for EOD, and where we was 99.9% EFP attacks, and it's horrible. And he had a very, very, very weak stomach, terribly weak stomach. He wanted to get me in the firefights and everything else as much as he could. He wanted to get out of the truck and run and do everything else, but when it came to seeing something bad, I had to make sure he stayed in the truck. I had another guy who used to do homicide cleanup, so he was my guy. But at that time, we were doing so much and working so much that I remember being at the sanitation rack and having him sitting in the truck. We'd come back in from an incident. It was just him and I. Ran by, got told to go to the sanitation rack where they clean vehicles up after a catastrophic hit of an IED. And I remember leaving him in there, and I got out of the vehicle. And when I got out of the vehicle that was hit, there was a sergeant major sitting there from I think it was 369 Armor. And he said, "Hey, come here." And I walked over there, and he said, "How often do you come to the sanitation rack?" And I said, "Far too many times." And he says, "You don't come anymore." He says, "I've seen you here." He said, you're not allowed to come." He said, "From now on, they will get in the vehicle and they will call you if something's damaged, but you're not going to dig through stuff to find out if something's damaged, if an AT-4 is damaged or a grenade or something like that after a IED attack." And I said, "All right." And I started to walk away, and he said, "Hey, come here." And I said, "What?" "Yeah." And he goes, and I didn't think about it, didn't see it, didn't realize it, nothing. He says, "Dude, you're covered in brain matter." He says, you've got stuff all over you. And he had a soldier go get one of his uniforms to bring to me And I changed right there, and he says, "You do not come back here." And that's the kind of times we were in. It was horrible. It was really, really horrible. But I left Chauncey in there and tried to do everything I could to keep his stomach together. Before that deployment, we were at Gator, and he said, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And I said, "All right." And he said, "So I've been talking to your niece a lot." And I said, "Have you?" And my niece lived in Texas, and he said, "I'm thinking about asking your niece." And I knew they had been talking. I mean, they've been having those, teenage kid conversations, like 1 or 2 hours a night, her in Texas, him in Missouri. And he said, "I'm thinking about asking her to get married before this deployment." And I said, "Well, all I can tell you is she's got a daddy that's about as genuine cowboy can be. And he will tear you to pieces if you don't treat her right. I don't even need to get involved." And he's a mountain of a man. He's the only man I know that ever wrestled a bear and won. And I said, "I will. I don't. I mean, you go on, big guy." And they got married, and we deployed, and I ended up running him as a team member for a while on my team, and then I ended up taking over for the platoon sergeant. I had to go home early for a surgery. And ended up being platoon sergeant. I think we ran as a team several times after that as well. And got back. We both went to Fort Polk, Louisiana. Him to the unit, to the 705th, and I went to JRTC.
Mm-hmm.
So I was evaluating teams coming through and getting ready to go to war. And he was at the unit trying to become a team leader. And he became a team leader. And that unit was pretty young, and they got told, "Hey, you're deploying." At that time, I got asked to go to the SORB, Special Operation Recruiting Team, to go try to recruit EOD guys out of the Army that were in jobs into EOD. And so I went to Fort Bragg, and I'll never forget it, and it sticks with me today. It weighs heavy at times. But at the time at the SORB, we weren't sure, because I was going to a recruiting position, even though I was going to the special operations side of the house for recruiting. They sent me to recruiter school. You had to do it. Everybody, all the instructors at recruiter school were like, "Yeah, you're going to the SORB. You'll never use this stuff. You're not going to talk to kids off the street and in high schools. Just make your way through recruiting school, be done, and go live the good life at Fort Bragg."
Well, and that's where I run into you again at Fort Jackson.
Yep, without a doubt. Yeah, you were staying there. You were backstopping while I was there in school. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. So while I was in school, because EOD was not an enduring program, the SORB, Fred Dumar was our colonel. He was a Green Beret colonel. The absolute just phenomenal guy, phenomenal leader, incredible guy, without a doubt. He was our colonel, and he was talking to Adrian White on a regular basis, and Adrian was the lead EOD guy, and he's like, "Look, if you guys aren't becoming an enduring program, we may not be able to keep you under our umbrella." So me being in school and not even on the team yet, I'm calling Adrian, and Adrian's telling me, "Man, I don't know if you're going to have a job when you get here." And I happened to call. I had a really, really bad. I've had bad ankles for years and years, and I twisted my ankle in school doing something, and I was on crutches and called. So that was going against me, being on crutches. Had messed up ankle. I can't tell you how many times. I should probably have surgery about 10 times on the ankle, but I just kept pushing through. So I hurt my ankle, and then I wasn't sure if I was going to have a job when I got done with this, probably one of the most ridiculous schools the Army has. Because, again, I'm a non-compliant guy, and you sent me to an Army school where we're supposed to have formation, and I was in charge of my class, and we're supposed to have formations every day for accountability, and I don't do formation. Yeah, it just did. I wasn't the guy, But so I had all these things going against me, and I remember calling, and him calling me, and he said, "I passed my team leader cert," and he's like, "Man, we really really need leadership. He said, not top leadership. They needed platoon sergeants. And he said, man, you should call Featherman, because I was telling him I may not have a job when I get out of the school. He's like, you should call Featherman and deploy with us. We're deploying. And I was this close. Ray White had left and came there. I think Ray had left the 21st, and went there, and he had a EFMP, exceptional family member, so he couldn't deploy. So Ray ended up having to leave. So they didn't have an E7 in that unit, and he was trying everything in the world. And I was already thinking, how am I going to call Melissa and tell Melissa, hey, I'm going to deploy? But if I would have told Melissa, I'm going to deploy with Chauncey to be a platoon sergeant, she would have said go. She would have said, yeah, I got you. Go ahead. She wouldn't have balked. I mean, she would have cried and done the wife thing, but she would have been all for it. And I was that close. And he deployed and went to Afghanistan with his unit. And at the time, he was the senior EOD team leader. He had more time overseas, more time in combat than any other team leader they had. And I don't know. I do know the particulars and all that good stuff. But anyways, he went on a mission and it went bad. And unfortunately, he didn't make it back. So, and his P2 as well. He didn't make it back either. So. Both of them got hit. They were dismounted ops with the infantry, and things went bad, and he didn't make it back. And it was a horrible hit, not only to the family. It was a horrible hit across EOD. I mean, everybody knew the kid, loved him. Great guy, and hard worker and all that good stuff. And good EOD tech. Just some, Murphy, I guess. So, but yeah, just, definitely, I tell this story. I keep him close to me. Him and a few others are on a bracelet. I look at it every day.
Yeah.
I keep him in my heart, and definitely, I think about him a lot. He's a good kid. He's, and he was kind of like me as far as the fact I don't think Chauncey Mays jumped on the Army, raised my right hand, say my oath to go in the Army because it was a patriotic thing. I'm sure it was there. We all get teared up. Our head starts to swell and our eyes leak when the national anthem's played or Pledge of Allegiance or anything like that. That's in us, but when it came down to signing paperwork, we probably neither him or I signed paperwork saying, "Ooh, I'm going to fight for my country." It was more of, well, I need to get out of a small town. I need to do something else in my life. This is going to be good. And that video they showed me at the stinking recruiter's office looked pretty sexy. But yeah, I think about him. I don't, unfortunately, like I said at the beginning, you and I share far, far, far too many of those. And
yes,
our field is full of it. And our field is very, very, very full of suicide.
That's one of the things about this show. We push suicide awareness. We push, and if you're having trouble, reach out to someone.
Absolutely.
That's how come I want to get somebody from After the Long Walk on here to talk sometime and talk about that a bit.
I think in 2019, I deployed a unit, myself and Josh Tucker. We deployed to Afghanistan and took, I think 25 of us total, went to Afghanistan to Kandahar. And during that time, I had to write a white paper. I think it's 2017. I had to write a white paper for Chief of Staff. I think all senior EOD leadership had to do that. where we had to write a white paper that was going to Army Chief of Staff and then on to the president on why we thought the suicide rate was so high. And writing that, then I really didn't. Only thing I could contribute it to was op tempo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Op tempo was crazy, deploying constantly. I spent 39 months deployed.
Mm-hmm.
That's I know you did too. You spent a bunch, and it's the surge was a mountain that just got placed on our back, and horrible. I mean, horrible time, and so that's the only thing I could contribute it to. Now I'm educated a little bit more, and now TBI, blast overpressure, the things that happen in your brain, the things that are going on now explain so much as to why we have that huge amount of suicide in our field, and it's a shame. It's terrible, and the bad thing is we battle it every single day. Organizations like After the Long Walk that have constant phone watch for people, EOD techs that call in, with EOD techs answering the phone. Your brothers, you may or may not know them. We're a small field. You may or may not know them, but they're techs on the other end of that line. So we have that because people saw the need to, hey, this is ridiculous. We've got to provide something, and thank goodness for the guys that kicked that off and started it and got that going, because it's been a blessing to a number of people's lives, and it's horrible. It's a horrible epidemic in our field. It's terrible. It's guys and gals are suffering every single day, and I think a lot of it has to do with blast overpressure. A lot of it has to do. I mean, I suffer migraines like nobody's business, and and I know what it's from. I try to figure out other things that could be a problem, but CT scans say otherwise. So
yes, they do. Yes, they do.
But I don't want to go too far, because we both share, like I said, a lot of people, and to the point where it truly takes the wind out of us. And we can sit here and name names forever, but one that we share that we truly both know and knew and loved, and both considered top of the food chain in our field and as a person, was the guy who that's literally the shirt off his back.
And I got to say one thing. He had a motto. Do you want to be good, or do you want to be great?
Yeah.
And
I got a great dog. She knows when I'm hurting.
And that's probably the reason they named the building over at the 184th after him. So here's to Jason T. McMahon.
Yeah. I don't have a beer, but I got Master Blaster coffee, so that seemed to
Hey, that stuff is amazing.
Yeah. Steve's a good guy. He's a good guy. He's a good entrepreneur. So
Steve was one of my students when I was instructing at EOD school.
Yeah. But Jason and his unit, I was at JRTC as an OC when they came through, and he was a commander, and absolute rock star, just off the charts as far as a commander. And we truly had a great time there together. And he when he was leaving, I asked for a shirt. I said, do you guys have any extra shirts and to sell? And he took his shirt off and said, hey man, you can have this one, I don't have any more. And he threw it to me, and this shirt is been in my drawer, and it will remain in my drawer probably till the day I go. And I look at it. He's on my bracelet as well. Jason was a top-notch dude. I never served with him, Never was in a unit. I know you did, and
Mm-hmm.
I when it comes to respect, and I mean, look at the situation. Jason died in a firefight he was an officer. He died in a
Mm-hmm.
firefight with soldiers,
Yes.
and he died on the battlefield in a firefight with not only EOD guys but other guys,
Yes.
and he was there doing everything he can to make sure that people got out, and he just phenomenal guy without a doubt, and
Yes.
definitely missed and cherished, and will always be in the heart for sure.
Yeah. Now we got another question here from Kendall. The numbers we lose come from various career fields and backgrounds. Do you think that adrenaline loss could be some of the issue?
I will say this. I think post-military on EOD guys, I don't know about everybody else. I think when everything does slow down and that op tempo changes, and I'm here to tell you this was me, without a doubt. When I decided to get out, before retire with 22 years, when I was going through the process of retiring, the only thing I could think about was, what in the world am I going to do? That's going to satisfy what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what am I going to do that's going to fill that void? So I think that if you're speaking on adrenaline, as far as op tempo being so high for so many years, and then you dump when you retire, you get out of that job, I think that has a lot, because it took its toll on me really, really bad. And I don't, and I had a really rough time because the VA and I did not get along very well during that whole process. I was literally the poster child for the VA not caring and doing things wrong, to the point where I walked out of a building with my wife one day, and I was so infuriated because we had just proven a man wrong who was telling me I was a liar, and my wife caught it, and he couldn't say anything, right? So my ratings, everything were really messed up. Everything was really, really bad. And I walked out of there, and I told my wife, I said, if you were not here with me right now, my truck would go through the front of that building. I would hit his office, and that was horrible, a horrible thing to say. But that's how mad I was, and that was building from this anticipation of, what in the world am I going to do? I can't shoot at people no more. You know, you can't shoot at people. You can't blow stuff up. You can't. I mean, you can do that stuff, but it's not very good when you're a civilian. You know, it's not going to work out well.
You can see that come up across the screen. Our founder here was escorted out of the mental health area and asked not to come back.
Yeah, we have a very broken system. And I hate to complain about something when I'm not the solution, and I'm not the guy to be the solution. I'm not. But to answer the question, I think the adrenaline deal, I think suicide, I think it comes from that. I think the main thing that our field experiences is we can get on a full force, and look at us now. I'll get back to it, but look where we've come, Jake. We went from nobody in the Army knowing who we were. I mean, do you remember the stories you used to tell people about your EOD badge on your uniform?
Mm-hmm.
When people would say, "What is that?" We'd say in-flight missile repair, you know, and just stupid thing. And people would look at you like, "What?" And
space shuttle door gunner.
Yeah, nobody knew who we were, you know. And then we go to war, and people know who we are, and then of course, but when we got into the war part of our careers, it was so fast paced.
Yes.
And when you weren't in that fast paced atmosphere, that's when things you had this buildup. A lady told me one time, a psychiatrist told me, she said, you got to think of it as your closet in your house.
Yes.
You can throw stuff in there all day, and you can always fit something else in that closet. But one day when you open it, it's all going to come out. Well, when we're not running, we're not running 9 incidents a day and overseas for, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 months at a time, that stuff starts coming out. That closet door opens and that stuff comes out. And I think that's a big thing. And then you put TBI on top of that. You put those things on there, and man, it's to this day we're still losing people to suicide, and it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
It is.
But we went from nobody knowing who we are, and look at the people who's moved the needle in our field to where now we're with every SF group out there. Every Green Beret group out there has EOD. Rangers have EOD. Everybody's got it. We've went into the special operations side, and we're doing so many different things. So that op tempo level at those guys, if you support it soft on a deployment, the op tempo was crazy. It just, and then when you stop all that, when you stop it, that's when you have to start processing. It's tough, and unfortunately, we have several that fell to that. So.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm getting the red light.
Uh-oh.
So we're going to have to wrap this up. But when we do, hang out in the green room a little bit, like chat a little bit more.
Okay. I will say this. I'll end with this right here. I tell you, man, I'll babble, but I'll end with this. God saved me. Period. God is the reason I'm here. When I started removing scales from my own eyes and seeing that he was available, and that he wasn't done with me, that's why we're here. That's why I'm here. And that's the biggest thing I have to contribute it to. I have an amazing wife, amazing children, but God is the reason that Will Eller still has a heartbeat. So.
Yes, I will agree with you. Well, Will, pop off into the green room, and
all right.
We'll continue this for a little bit. And I want to tell everybody, if you're watching the taped version of this, remember to like and subscribe. And it's on YouTube forever. So, and I thank each and every one of you for jumping on this evening. It's been a real good time.
This was a great show. Thank you both.
Thanks.
We'll see you.
All right.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
He raised his right hand, promised to defend his homeland. Enemies foreign and unknown. When will he be home? Tap, tap, tap. The plane rises into the sky. Friends and family wave goodbye. Will we get to see him again? For now, we have to remember when. Tap, tap, tap. Weeks go by, and he's maturing fast. Gunshots and roadside blasts. Head is on a swivel, trying not to be next. Doing everything he can, risking his neck. Tap, tap, tap. One friend, 2 friends, and another one lost. He definitely knows the cost. A raid is coming, getting ready. Weapon is clean and he is steady. Tap, tap, tap. It's go time, patrol moves out. Some head west, he has no doubts. His thoughts are on the mission, no time for fantasy or wishing. Tap, tap, tap. 4-man stack at each door. Adrenaline pumps, time for war. Kick it in, shots ring out. A flash, a bang, and lights go out. Tap, tap, tap. His brothers do what they are trained for. Evacuate to a helicopter that flies north. They hope for a good outcome. Stay focused on the job to be done. Tap, tap, tap. On behalf of a grateful nation, we regret to inform you that your son, your daughter, is not coming home. The tap at the door is a sound loved ones of those serving fear the most. Remember those who have gone and the ones they left behind on this day.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.